So what is this happening?
Well, what's the check-in? Yeah. Well, you can ask me, they have a room to get there. Yeah. You're just moving around your thing out. Yeah.
Yeah.
This was shortly after that. I love this picture.
I like Joe. I should do that. I'm not sure which would draw more attention.
You're still good, guy. You were black guy.
Yep. And I just told myself, good story. It's not that
Yeah.
unless you don't want us to. No.
See, dude, you're delivering it right on time.
Right. Yeah.
Just in time video.
That's why we we've all been the victims of
Really,
laptops that ended up when you went to do the PowerPoint or yes text. You're like, can't get it to present it. I can't get it to do a presentation.
You should have a new one. That says come. Hang on, Joe. Joe, hang on. You might have two. Just the one that had
the wireless podium. Okay. Yeah, we like to move. We like our village manager likes to be able to move with podium. So.
Oh, thanks. 1, 2, good. Hey, Brian, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm on the phone, Joe.
Okay.
I thought he did. And he told me he was going to come in. Yeah, right, yeah. Hi, Diane Nelson. Hi, nice to meet you. Robin, there you are. Did you get yours? Sorry, I'm wondering. It's just being somebody that you're not. It's not the context. Everybody's understanding. Yeah, you're allowed to do that. Yeah, better.
Hey, what's going on with Joe, Brian? Hey, Diane.
Yep.
As soon as Joe gets connected.
Okay, I'm ready to go. I'm sitting on it. I did the stop it. I didn't go out, so I'll just edit it and send it out.
They gave me
Or somebody. Yes,
All right. Hey, Joe. Hello. Good, you're on. Two, 1, 2.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for your patience as we get started here. Welcome to the summer GMIS Illinois quarterly meeting. We got a full good lineup of great speakers today. Before we get started, I want to just do a few housekeepings. There is Wi-Fi. It's the VOP public. You just have to acknowledge the terms. Bathrooms right around the corner. And please, no food in this room, as it's a brand new building, and they're trying to keep it nice. Our first speaker today is Sam Ferguson. I met Sam a long time ago, back probably almost 20 years ago when I started at Bartlett, and Sam's been on the board. He's served as treasurer. He served as president. He's been the IT director here in Palatine, and he's been the IT director at Schaumburg, and a whole lot of other work that he's done. And I'm glad to ask you up, Sam.
Okay, how about that?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. All right, where's the weapons here?
Well, we are going to ask you to stand up here so that way the
Okay, well, in the form of introductions, I am Sam Ferguson, and I have been in this room, but it was in a totally different state when I started here 27 years ago, and almost 27 years to the month when I started. It's a beautiful facility, and I don't know where you're going to get Larry, but a beautiful facility, and it's the first time I've been in it, and I actually live in town. I'm over here at the Park District about every day.
Hey, excuse me? Excuse me? I'm sorry, can you move the camera? All I can see is your elbow.
Well, it's a good-looking elbow, though, isn't it? How about now? Are we good?
Thank you.
All right. I'm not used to playing to a viewing audience. One of the things, once we get this going, is that I promise you I'm not going to build a wall. I'm not going to call anybody a criminal, as some of our politicians are doing these days. But what I'm going to talk about a little bit is managing people and hiring people. And really the benefit of this organization, when I came to it as one of you, was to sit out there, and yeah, the speakers were nice and they were good, and Diane bends a lot of elbows to get people here. But what the real benefit to me always was, after the speakers brought up some talking points, then that speaker would say, what are you guys doing? And I was more interested in what you guys were doing, because, you know, when you see my slides, that's about as creative as I get, folks. So I need help in figuring things out. And the folks who help me figure things out are sitting in the audience. So that's what I'm going to kind of do. It also makes my job a little easier, because then I can just sit up here and say, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's good. So that's what I want to do today as we go through the talking points. So that is the introduction. And we're going to talk a little bit about the state of IT hiring, and we've got some experts here in the room with us that you can ask questions about. Don't want to put you on the spot back there, Richard, but you're on tap for maybe getting hit up today. Hiring new employees, managing the employee, and then, like I say, we're gonna discuss what you all are doing, because again, I think the value to GMIS members is other GMIS members and what they bring to the table. And my experience has been that once those talking points have been brought up, whether it takes 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and I'm going to try not to belabor all the points. It's real easy for this group to talk, so filling an hour, and Diane will yank me off the stage if I go too long, is usually not a problem, because GMIS members have good ideas and speak their mind, and don't have a problem doing that. So let's, whoa, I think I went too far. The state of IT hiring, and again, I've been here, I've been over at Schaumburg, I've been retired for 4 years, and done some interim work in between, most recently down at Joliet for the last 6-7 months, in helping them. And I want you please to meet the new CIO and one of his folks, Dave Brainer and Anthony Ardolino from Joliet. I've been down Joliet for about that 7 months as an interim CIO. And what I found was that, and in talking with some hiring folks, is that there's current trends in the IT world today where there's a mix of full-time equivalent people and contractors. We had started that a little bit back in 2011 when I was still at Schaumburg, and I think if anybody was here from Schaumburg, I think they've expanded that to 3 or 4 now, where there's contractor folks versus full-time. And as you know, full-time employees are hard to come by in municipal government these days, and you have to see what works. I think the comment was in one of the organizations I was in, well, it's a path of least resistance. It's easier to get a contract person than it is to get a full-time equivalent and pay that kind of money. But it has to make sense too from a finance point, contract versus full-time. Again, there's people in the room that can fill you in more about that. Salary ranges, and I took this from some global knowledge information and salarylist.com, and I throw these up there because I know when I sat out there with like you guys, I kind of wanted to know, well, what does this talent go for? What does the talent go for in the private sector? What does this talent go for in the government sector? So I just threw those numbers out there to you to give you an idea about what some of those going rates are. Cloud people, 115K a year. Now again, this is private sector averages. Architecture people, 113. Security, 104, and so on. Government averages and salaries may vary, and you guys know what you pay, and I know what some of the other organizations pay. I know what I used to pay, but these are close. CIO, directors, 90 to 150, help desk 30, desktop, and so on. So that kind of gets you a feel, and I just didn't make this stuff up. It did come from a source. Most of you know of Global Knowledge and have worked with them in one fashion or another, so that's their numbers. And wasn't real familiar with salarylist.com, but again, it's a published organization that lists those kind of things. Let's see. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is there some way that we can either see the slides or you can send them to us?
Glenn's working on that, and Glenn, I need to go to the next slide if I can for some. Technology is great when it works, isn't it? Yeah, anybody like to? Don't ask me to fix it, by the way. Here, let me. Easy crowd. They don't heckle too badly. I did have hard copy. I'm an old school guy. Let's see, where'd we go here? All right, now we're moving on to here, folks. Who's doing the driving? Bear with us out there in viewing land. We apologize for the technical difficulty. Don't worry, there's only about 50 of these that we're going to go through, and it won't be a problem. No, I think I've got 5 actually, so it's all right. Let me try it again. Let me go back. Oh, we're going to get there. So we actually jumped this one. So that hiring a new employee, managing employee, and discussion. So now, current trends, that's where we are. Salary ranges, that's where we finished up. Here we go. Now, good golly, Larry, this thing jumps on me. I was just talking with Sierra, Rich Duran, who's in the audience today, just the other day, and there is a very strong industry demand. As some of you have been around a while, you know there tends to be an ebb and flow of IT talent. There were times when I was working that you couldn't get IT help. It was really tough because they were in demand. There were other times when the market was flooded. You could get real good people, even at government prices. That pendulum has swung back to that if you're good, you got 3 offers out there. And so we're kind of in that environment now. So it's a very strong demand industry-wide. You know those who are fortunate enough to hire may be feeling some of that difficulty. As I mentioned before, there is and there does tend to be a trend to a mix of contractors and full-time folks. And I think some of that is because also the back office stuff that we have to run our data on and keep going are commodity items. So can we farm that out as opposed to have a full-time caretaker? Can I have somebody as a contractor come in and only have to be there once or twice a week to monitor some equipment or do some particular functions with that equipment rather than having a full-time person? Similarly, cloud and local storage and the management also lends itself to, do I need all these FTE people that I used to need because I had everything on site? You know, and there seems to be a trend where that may be reversing, but I know when I was still active, there was a move towards getting things in the cloud for DR purposes and continuity. And it took a lot off of our plate to be able to do that. Now some folks are starting to maybe pull some of that back in because they're finding some of that cloud environment is becoming a little too costly. So you have to weigh whether or not, you know, cloud and hiring cloud folks versus hiring your own folks to keep that stuff up is really what's the best bang for the buck for your organization. You're gonna have to evaluate that. I can tell you right now, I just had lunch with Peter Shack over at Schaumburg a week and a half ago, and they're looking at pulling some of that back in house because their ERP application service provider, their stuff is kind of expensive when you throw it out there on their servers in Massachusetts. Others it makes sense because they don't have that DR ability, or Pete's getting in a good situation because he's got a police department 2.5 miles away. He's got a whole other data center. He's got fiber between the two places, and he can shoot that stuff back and forth. For organizations who don't have that, it may still be more advantageous to throw that to Massachusetts, let them deal with all the headaches, and have the agreement in place that says you got to keep it up to keep us going. Usually my trigger finger is pretty light, so I don't know what's going on there. Hiring the new employees, whether it's hiring a Sierra or a Sentinel employee, or hiring a full-time equivalent. You're going to review some resumes, and what I looked for in my experience, relevant job experience, dates and times of work, and significance of that work.
Hello? Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yes, Joe. Looks like they're just lagging a little bit. Joe,
Yeah?
did you get my text about Sanford?
Yeah, I did. I was kind of surprised you didn't respond to my email because I sent him an email saying, hey, is he coming? But
You may have been, who knows? I
Customer
want to make sure you saw it.
centered, customer focused. They really didn't have a clock in their head that says I'm done at 5 o'clock, even though we try to keep people within the time frame so HR doesn't climb all over our back. But as IT people, you know, you put in more than your 35 or 40 hours a week. It comes with the territory. So you got to see, are those folks attitudinally in a place where more than likely they're going to do that kind of thing because that's the way they're wired. Are they a get it done type of person? An example I like to use is when I talked with one individual, the answer they gave to, well, what do you do if somebody comes up and says, well, this is down and I need some help? Well, the person said, well, at that point I own it, and I'm going to see it through from the point they tell me to the point it's done, and they say we're done. And so you look for those types of responses and those types of get it done attitude when you're interviewing folks. This is a question I always like to ask because I've got the weirdest answers on this. If you were offered the job today, would you take it? And it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple question. But I bet I've had 20 different iterations of answers to that question. And it tells a lot to me about a person in the way they answer that. Now, if they come back and say, yes, it's a very interesting job to me, and I would take it, but I got to check with my wife. That's a good answer. That's an okay answer. I'm all for that one. Because if you don't do that, that's not good. It's not a good thing. But other than that, it's kind of, you're looking for a yes, and they're not going to give you a no, but they give you a no by their body language. They give you a no by, well, I'm not really sure. It sounds kind of iffy. So it's always been a good question to ask for me. And if you ever ask that question, just annotate the types of responses you get because it's interesting. Manage that employee once you have selected that get it done person. Obviously, you try to ingrain them into the organization. You make them feel welcome. I'm big on setting job expectations, not Ferguson's expectations, but an agreed to verbal, written down after the fact contract that says, here's what your job is. Here's how I see it as a supervisor. How do you see that as a skilled person? Okay, we agree. Once we agree, we annotate that. And at that point, we've set those expectations and agreed upon them. And you incorporate those expectations then into the individual departmental goals and objectives. Now, every organization that I've been in has been a little different about how they do these type of, because eventually these leads to appraisals, annual appraisals, or whatever your organization does. But every organization I've been in do these things a little bit different. HR is a little bit different. Not to pick on Joliet, but I'm going to pick on Joliet, Dave. Joliet, and you have to understand, in 2008, their administrative folks were decimated. They got 4 HR people for 900 and some employees down there. They're overworked. They haven't done a lot of this kind of stuff. So, they have to kind of, IT down there kind of has to take it upon themselves to say, well, Anthony, you're expected to do this. Do you agree? Okay, that's what I'm going to grade you on. Some HR departments have it fine-tuned with the department. Schaumburg, very good. They actually pay for performance based on goals and objectives and meeting those expectations and those goals and objectives. And if Pete were here today, and I encourage you to call him because he's pretty open to that kind of stuff, he'll tell you how they do it and how they actually pay for performance in Schaumburg. But it's within that spectrum somewhere you fall, I'm sure. But the thing I'm trying to get across here is that people need to know where they fit in. They need to know which cog they are in the wheel that is IT, and the IT that is the village of X, and where they fit in. If they know where they fit in and they know what they're expected to do, guess what? Most people are going to do it. And if they don't do it, what have they done? They've lied to you because they agreed to you've agreed with each other what you're going to do. So you reinforce those expectations, and the goals and objectives, and you evaluate them often. And I don't mean written evaluations every day, but you see what they're doing, and you acknowledge the work they're doing, and you recognize the work they're doing. We're, as supervisors, and when I supervised, I hold up my hand too. We're real good usually about the get it done piece, but we're not real good a lot of times about saying, you were real good in getting that done. I appreciate the job you do. And there used to be, we'd give some awards for that kind of thing. We'd give some monetary awards for that kind of thing. But, and I don't have the research in front of me, but the statistics show that the pat on the back goes a long way towards the recognition and job satisfaction of the people you supervise. They want to be told occasionally that they do a good job. And similarly, on the flip side of that, there's a whole accountability piece there that incumbent upon you as the supervisor to say, well, we could have done that a little bit better, and here's what I would like you to do to do that a little bit better. And again, the way I always looked at it from the standpoint, if I had an employee who wasn't performing as expected, as agreed to, expected, we go back over those expectations and we say, you're not really up to snuff here on X. What can we do about that? And we kind of set a little plan in place that says, here's how we're going to improve that. And if they need training, I'm one to say, well, did I train them enough? Did I coach them enough? And if I didn't do that, I needed to do it again. And I might even do it again. But there comes a point in time with individuals, and you've all been around them and probably had to do some of this, and it's not pleasant. But you say, well, look, here's what we agreed to. Here's what's not being done. Here's where I coached you. Here's where I counseled you. Here's what we agreed to again, and you're still not doing it. At that point, you have made a choice, employee X, to not do what you want to do or what we've asked you to do, and you can't help us anymore. And at that point, it's not you being the bad guy. It's that individual choosing not to do what they agreed to do. I think a good example of that, again, happened down in Joliet, which was they've got a fairly new finance director, and they had training. They had their folks sign for training, that they had the training. They had the person sign again that they had training twice. Well, the next time when the person didn't do it, the finance director said, well, you aren't helping us here. And they had to let that person go. And that's a classic example of training and retraining and coaching and counseling and setting those expectations and holding accountable. And that's really what we need to do, and that's what's expected of staff. A lot of staff that they don't like to be reinforced and encouraged and disciplined to the point of things going on, but they like structure. Folks like structure, and they like to know where they fit. And if that occurs, then they do their job, and you can probably leave them alone to do their job at that point. Most people, if you set those expectations, you turn them loose, and they do it. And then it's our job just to check in once in a while to make sure everything's going along. But recognize frequently, too. Again, I can't overemphasize that enough. The pat on the back goes miles. So, as I said, you've listened to me long enough, and I'm certainly going to answer questions if you have them, but I'm more interested in, and I think people sitting out there are more interested in, what you guys do for hiring and management that's worked for you. Because I've told you what has worked for me, but what's worked for you? And I'm sure I'll hear something that will actually help me too. So at this point, I'd open it up for discussion, open it up for questions, so that the GMIS folks can listen to GMIS folks. Questions, comments? Friday, Rob.
So, the first question deals with what's good with employees. What are the skills that are are they kind of more on the industry side, way back governors,
Where the skill sets are?
That you're hiring for at the IT level. So what's the class? What's the visual
Well, and this, I may actually throw this back to the people who are hiring IT folks every day, but when I was doing the hiring, and understand, I was mainly hiring the upper end technical folks and assistant director types. So what I was looking for were those get it done type of people who would take the ball and say it's mine until it's done. Technically, if you're looking for a network administrator or a system administrator, something, you've got to hone in on the specificity of what you can't sleep at night worrying over. So if you got to have 100% uptime, 99 point something uptime, you want somebody locked into the technical side of what it is that's giving you that heartache. So you're going to be asking more questions around what have you done in this environment, which is ours or yours, to help me sleep at night. And those questions would be centered around that. But I would open it up to, I'd ask a question to Rich if I can. Rich Grant from Sierra, who hires IT people for a living and places them. What are you seeing, Rich, from the standpoint of technical needs, to answer Rob's question, technical needs for these folks today?
Sure, no, sorry, that'd be great.
Sure. So I didn't expect to be talking today, but hello everybody. So I run a company, Sierra ITS, and what we do is contract to hire, direct hire IT staffing. I've been in the business since 1994. So what we see, and it does, it ebbs and flows with the economy, but right now there's IT unemployment is sub 2% nationwide. If you really think about it, there is very little available talent that you want to hire. The talent that you're going to want to hire is either working direct as an employee or as a contractor to be assumed on another contract or a contract to hire gig. So what we see, generally speaking, within the infrastructure world is, of course, virtualization, VMware, the Microsoft offering, either on the server level and then moving to the client level. And a lot of our clients have done the server side. Over the past couple of years, now they're moving to the thin client side. Then within the development world, I mean, that's even harder to find. Finding good sysadmins and network engineers is tough. Trying to find good DBAs and developers is even harder, just because, as Sam had said, we placed a couple of .NET developers, a couple of SQL developers over the last couple months, and every time you make an offer to one of these people, they've got 2 or 3 other offers that they're considering. So it really is a war for talent until the economy softens again, and God knows when that is. And if I knew, I wouldn't be standing here. I'd be sitting with Alan Greenspan or someone. But so the technology demands really is dependent upon what your environment is. And you got to hone down, as Sam said, you got to hone down what your true needs are, what your wants are, what keeps you up at night, and then from there you got to find the right person for your organization, because somebody can be really good technically, as we all know, and if they don't have that skill set that's going to take care of the customer, it tends to not work out. So it's that rough mix of someone who's really good technically, but also who cares about what he or she does and cares about the client. So it's just getting that.
I had a question. I often see it requirements of 4-year or something. How important is that?
I think the question is, how important is the degree to hiring IT talent? Because he's seeing in the one ads that you have to have a 4-year degree or a master's degree. I've known good technical people and managers on both sides of that coin. I think the differentiating piece, and I've told this to eventual directors, is that it's kind of, in the Army, and I came out of the Army, you had to have certain tickets punched to get to a certain level. And I think if you don't have that 4-year degree or master's degree ticket punched, you're going to find it a tough road to become a CIO. In fact, I can tell you the last couple of placements that I assisted with, because these folks are making 150 grand, and to me, if they're getting that kind of responsibility and that kind of compensation, they ought to have shown that kind of progression in their education. And so I recommended in both places that it be a minimum of a master's in some field associated with IT. I'm not sure what you're seeing.
No, I would agree with that. If your career path is to move into the management, to be a manager, director, then CIO, you have to have those educational credentials. If you want to go down the pure play technical route, it's less important. But again, it's, in your industry and in my industry, it's continual education. And if you're not willing to continue either from a technical or a managerial level, better yourself, it's the Peter Principle. You'll reach a certain level, and that's where you'll be. But in life, we all need the individuals who are the workhorses of our organizations. And then we also need the leaders. So it depends on what you aspire to.
I think along those same lines, I sent Rich 2 or 3 weeks ago an individual that I happen to know through church. Well, the guy's got certifications, longer than my arm. So I don't know that he had a 4-year degree, but he's been in IT a long time. He's got a lot of certifications that show what he's done and what he can do in regards to those types of certifications. So along those, and this is kind of a question for you, along those same lines, if you have somebody that maybe doesn't have a 4-year degree, but they have a history of certification after certification, staying fresh and new, is that a good indicator for you from a hiring standpoint to then place?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that's more on that geared technical track.
Right.
Right. Did that answer your question, Chris?
Yeah. Okay. And I think so. Also, Chris, is during a really good economy like we're in now, at least from an IT perspective with unemployment, companies are more willing to hire individuals who may not have those degrees. But then as we shift again to a soft economy, then the bar gets raised again. So it really does depend on the cycle.
Let me just poll the audience here, if I may. Who out there is hiring right now, or wants to? I'm sorry. Staff. Well, either one, staff or contractual. Yeah, it is. It can. I guess you got to have the funds to still do it. I mean, we'd all like more help. We're all, all understaffed. So yeah, I saw a couple of hands. What are you guys hiring for? Yeah. Right. So we had one individual organizations hiring for help desk, manage the ticket type of person. Yes, ma'am. You had your hand up. Okay. Supplemental support in the area of DBA and network administration, and then Joe. And help desk and project management. Perfect. And again, I think there's I see help desk as could be FTE, could be contract. I see project management as a kind of almost a pure play on contractual. Unless you have a ton of projects lined up and it's always going to be running that cycle, I would see that more of a contractual arrangement so that you can pick and choose and use those dollars where you need them, when you need them. Anybody else? Yeah, Chris.
Follow-up question. So, both mentioned certification. Personally, I do a ton of, if ever were to get ready to do a project, but I never go the extra step going to get. I don't see the value for my. So I go, but how? I guess that would really my downfall. For me to go about excited about it.
Well, the question was, or comment was that he does a lot of training leading up to particular skill sets in order to be ready for his organization. And even though he may not get the certification, my coming back to that would be, you can still on a resume say you've got knowledge of and working knowledge of X, Y, and Z. You're not going to lie. You're not lying to him that you have A+ certification or whatever all the certification, Microsoft this, Cisco that. You're not saying that. You're saying I have working knowledge and working history with X, and I think that's true, and it's valid, and it means something, especially if that organization are looking for those particular skill sets.
But I think if you're embedded in an organization and you've got those skills and you're using them, that's wonderful. But if you ever decide, or if it's ever decided for you that you're not going to be with that organization any longer, the first question you're going to be asked is, why didn't you get that certification? And then people are going to say, is it because he or she decided it wasn't important, because they didn't think they could finish it? So it's subjective, but it's objective. So I think at the end of the day, it's probably in your best interest to put a bow on that and get the certification, just for the mere fact of, check the box, it's done. Because if you've already done all the hard work.
Yeah.
It's cost.
And I agree. Right. I saw Dave's hand back there.
So, in that event, yes. Certification. And every IT, I feel like sure that also aids in certain hospital, I experienced I tell people I'll make your exams. But I'm not going to say that it works. Now, and it makes it cost effective. I can't learn.
Good point.
And have to find yourself out the market. The only thing people working knowledge that doesn't require.
Dave's comment was that IT people, as they want to progress, they go ahead and get those initials, they get those certs where they can. His comment was that he would pay for the tests, but not the 2-week class to lead up to the test, or the curriculum leading up to the test. Which I'm a firm believer in that as well. I think there's more skin in the game that way, and you're helping them pass. You're helping them get to the test because you're paying for that. But they've done all the hard work leading up to that, and I think that's important. There needs to be some skin in the game on that. I had another question that I was going to pose out there. Are there any, again, you've hired people, are there any special things you do, or like Dave mentioned, what he looks for, are there any things that you do that have helped you hire people that might benefit others in the room? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Anything that comes to mind? Yes, sir. Right. Yeah. And I'm sorry, sir, your name? Okay. Wally Lang just mentioned, based on the question I threw out there, his comment was that he liked the try and buy of a Sierra or a Sentinel or somebody of that nature, so that they could maybe hire after a trial period and then put them on a real
and real life experience. Glenn had just did that same thing with a technician of ours who he had on board for X period of time, and then brought him on direct. And it's great because you guys get an opportunity to see, is this person someone who I want on my team and someone I want on my team long term, and also see if they're going to work out, just even in the short run, because hiring is a risk, and anytime you hire, you're taking a risk that I'm going to spend a lot of time and energy training this person, salary with this person, benefits with this person, and we don't know if it's going to work out. But if you've got the opportunity to try before you buy, you could take a lot of those risks out of the equation in order to make sure it's a successful engagement for both parties.
And that brings up just the base level question, I think, too, Rich, of full-time versus contractor. What is, again, I've been out of the mainstream for 4 years now. What is the sentiment amongst you folks as far as, do I want full-time people or do I want contractor people, or am I okay with a mix? Does anybody want to comment on that? Yeah, Michael.
I've come from organizations where we've had a number of FTE. One, 12, and all were people different environment, and I'm now working in an environment that no one, all of our back end, especially everything. I'm the guy that's there to set up and get balls. But yes, really ramp up very quickly because a lot of people will fire it and then the impact on, and then over time scale back and awesome.
Right.
It's worked out well. Managing contractors, it doesn't do all responsibilities. As you mentioned, still have the recognition aspect, pat them on back, talk with this, or hey, you really messed that up, that really have done, and have that, or some instances, don't send that in.
Yes.
Because it's just not a good fit. Where I find the difficulty overall is, and this is both on
process. So you have individuals that have where the popular word is that thing doesn't work. And you expect it to elicit what that thing actually is, so what needs to be there. And that we find is a challenge.
Right. Michael just stated there to that question that if you didn't hear it, was that he's had both FTEs and he's had contractors. Where he is now, it's all contractors, and he manages them. What he sees some of the time is that the soft skills aren't always there. But again, you have that latitude, as Michael said, to hey, you did a good job. Hey, you got to do better. Or hey, I don't want you back, which is a lot tougher to do with an FTE because then there's a process that we all have to go through one way or the other on an FTE standpoint. So that makes it a little easier. Yeah, Joe. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean,
Is that what you're saying?
It depends on where your weak points are. It could be where you've got weakness on the desktop side with your current team, so you're going to need to upgrade that talent one way or another. You can do a try buy, you can replace that person. I don't think it's a matter of profit. It's just a matter of does it make sense to an organization. But the easiest ones to outsource are the virtualization aspect because you can do that from wherever. To your point, with the desktop team, that's your managers of first impressions and that's your triage. So that's got to be the individuals who have great customer service skills, great technical skills, but even more so are empathetic to your end user, and that's what makes it. That's what makes the end user feel taken care of. Yeah, Val?
I think now the organization is also important at that level too.
Absolutely.
And, people may be able to take care of them at the low level, things and whatever. But the person, I believe, locally know the organization.
Totally.
Structure, whatever.
Yeah.
Val's comment was that whoever you put in there needs to know the organization. And one of the first things that I encountered when I walk into a police department and talk about full-time versus contract is I don't want a revolving door. That's what I hear from the police guys. I don't want a revolving door. I want to know that guy coming in here, because of course they're all paranoid and security conscious because that's what they do every day. And is that I don't want that revolving door. I want to know this guy because he's going to be touching my stuff. So that's always a concern that you probably face, not only in PD, but any of the organizations. And how do you in a environment where even they may wear a contractor on their ID tag, which I would do away with, by the way, if I was in an environment like that, because they are part of the IT staff. But at any rate, how do you deal with that from a placement standpoint?
And to someone's comment earlier, I think Mike, when you're hiring a contractor or an FTE, the bottom line is you're hiring a person, and that person has a certain value of his self or herself. And the more that you can empower that person to be the best that they can be, you win. So those attaboys as a contractor, those attaboys as a FTE, that's what makes it work. I was at a meeting with Joe in Lake Forest last week, or no, 2 weeks ago, and they had asked kind of what the difference is between, because we do both municipality work as well as corporate work. And they said, what's the average placement for municipality versus corporate America? And in our municipality business, it could be the same person is on site. In Schaumburg, we've had, Village of Schaumburg, we've had 2.5 people there for the same people for going on 3.5 years. So there's a consistency, and one person for 4 years. So there's a consistency with that. And her name is Adronia, she adds a lot of value by knowing the user base, to Val's point, and being part of their culture. So yes, she is a contractor, but at the same time, she was there when I was there. Yeah. So it's on. She going on 5. Is it going on 5? Okay. Yeah. But consistency is big, as long as the person is delivering the value that you need. And then in Glenn's case, you got the option of hiring if you need to hire, because nothing is set in stone, and your capital dollars for using contractors may go away, and then your FTE goes up, and then during other economies it changes. So you got to shift with the demands that your board gives you.
And I know we're running up against time here, right, Diane? But Chris, but I did want to say that, if you have more questions, and the question I'd have for him, and you might ask this on the side, is, okay, I know what a network administrator costs in Bartlett. What does it cost to get a contract network administrator in Bartlett? And where are my savings? So you got to balance that out too. And there's probably some folks in the room who've had a longer history with those contract employees, so they can tell you that ROI and get you that information. But it's been great talking with you all today, and I appreciate having me here and you coming up here. And I didn't mean to turn you into a speaker, but I did.
Thank
So thanks.
Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to take a break, but before we do, I just want to make sure everyone picks up a survey. Whenever we're trying to organize these meetings, we always, as a board, struggle to try to find topics that are going to be meaningful to all of you and be helpful. So we'd really appreciate it if you could, take one of those, fill it out, add some ideas, and maybe some even potential speakers that you think would be good on that topic, and maybe some projects. One of my personal things is I always like to hear about projects that all of you are doing. I always get, as Sam said, I always get the most out of these meetings when I learn about what other people are doing. So please grab a survey and fill it out for us. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and reconvene at 9:45. Thanks.
Can anybody hear me?
I can.
Hello, Dave.
Oh, yes, I
Yeah. Watch your stuff. Glenn, did you mute me?
But it comes, it simplifies your license.
See, we just added to it.
What, Brian?
Some people had multiple
I
devices.
was just going to make sure.
Brian?
Yes.
What did you need?
I just want to make sure that
You're cutting in and out.
yeah, your internet connection is kind of lagging.
Yep. That's why I like hard lines.
Is Mark Thorson in the room?
Yes, was. Brian, one second. Yes, Brian.
I sent you a text message, so I sent it this way.
Oh, okay, what's up?
I just want to make sure you're mentally prepared to do this on your own.
To do it on my own?
Disconnect between the two places? Or is this sounding clear? Are we going back and forth good enough right now?
Yeah, I think it would be all right. I can hear you. I'll probably be here at the podium, so it won't be, won't be walking around like I normally do.
Okay, and you did catch the fact that I'm not going to be able to drive the presentation, right?
You know what? You are breaking up there. What'd you say again?
Did you catch the fact that I will not be driving the presentation?
Yes, I did get that. And I sent Diane the presentation, so she should have it. It should be preloaded. If not, I'll figure something out.
Is she the one that's driving the presentation there?
Glenn seems to be.
Okay, well then I hope Glenn has it. Right?
Sorry, what was that?
Then I hope Glenn has the presentation.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Hang on one second.
Six slides later. Oh, okay.
Okay, so we've got it here. That shouldn't be a problem. I can drive, and you determine when we're talking. It's usually a little quieter, so I should be able to hear you.
Okay, just know that when I jump in, I'm going to say your name first.
Okay. Yep. Not a problem. And I will do the same.
And I will not stop. I will not start talking my part until I've heard you stop.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
And what I'm seeing here is, are we displayed up on the screen anywhere?
In a very small corner.
Okay, so when I talk, I don't go to big screen, right?
It does not flip you to the big screen, no.
Good. Because when Joe talked earlier, it did do that. So I'm glad that it's not doing that at the moment. Hopefully it'll remain doing that.
Okay.
Thank you. It
was
interrupted your break.
Oh yeah, no, don't worry about it. I'm just trying to grab Diane real quick.
All right.
You know, I should have.
Hey, Brian.
Brian's here.
Hey, Brian, could you take notes?
I intend to. Since you're doing all
Because,
the
yeah, and I'm not going to have a laptop in front of me, so I can't do much.
I have pen and paper ready to go. I don't know if you can see me or not. You have to look at the screen, I think. So,
Okay.
I'm ready.
And then I'll repeat the answer of the, the person out in the audience for you, so you can make sure you get the notes correct.
Thank you, Brian.
But I was trying to decide whether to show them the outline of our PDF, of the presentation, which has changed a little bit, or the slides, or both. Unfortunately, I can't toggle very easily between them because I don't have a PC.
Right. I would just focus on the outline.
Okay.
If I were you, or because we don't have a lot of time, so.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe I'll just put the outline up.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
She said she has all. Yes.
Hey, Glenn, how can I share that?
Yeah, I was thinking that that might not be bad. You are. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, everybody, we're going to try to get started here again. No, it's not blue.
Oh, I guess it's earphone.
Okay. All right. You know, I always forget things at the beginning of the meeting that Diane or someone else has to remind me of. I want to take a second to recognize some of our corporate members that showed up today. So if our corporate members could stand up and just let us know who you are, let everybody know who they are, and just a quick intro. Yeah. Mike with Tega. And of course, Richard with GRITS. Becky with Comcast. Well, welcome everyone. And I also, I hate to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. We have a brand new member today from Joliet. And I think he's out of but you're here, so you can stand up and introduce yourself. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Who was that, Chris?
It was, we have David Branner from, he's the Chief Information Officer from the City of Joliet, and my hearing is so bad that I know you said your name, but I couldn't hear it all the way. Anthony Arlino from Joliet. All right.
We're here too, by the way.
You got any new members there today?
No new members, but we our strength in numbers isn't as strong as up there in Palatine, but we've got 5 here in Normal and 2 in Bloomington.
Fantastic.
I mean, 2 in Champaign. So.
Great. The other thing I forgot to do is we do occasionally do some drawings between sessions. So on the back of your name tag there, you'll have a number, and Glenn's going to give me a number.
I've got the remote.
And we have your name badges with numbers on. So Craig, did Craig win?
Yeah.
Craig Nelson, are you there?
Yeah.
You won. So Joe will mail it to you.
Tell him cousin Diane.
Cousin Diane pulled your card.
Cousin Diane.
Do we know what it is?
What is it?
What you want is a surprise. You'll get in the mail though.
Thank you.
Oh, cool. Ted Giles is gonna also. We're gonna do a drawing. We'll do it. Should we do it at the end? Are you guys gonna be here through lunch? Okay. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Well, okay. Well, next up, we have Brian Johan Peter, who's the IT director for the City of Mattoon, and David Buick, Chief Information Officer, DuPage County Health Department. They're actually going to come up. They need your help. We've been trying to do some reach out to other members or other municipalities and agencies, and one of the ways we do this is by doing presentations for organizations like the Illinois Government Finance Office
is make sure you're all using the same vernacular, that you're using the same definitions. I found that with we're implementing a Acela field permitting system at the health department right now, and our environmental health services, with their old systems, the owner and the facility and the way they had the property and the way they had everything broken out was different than the way Acela Decade had theirs broken out. So what we did is we basically got out 2 pieces of paper and said, this is what their hierarchy is, and this is what our hierarchy used to be, and this is how they work together. And very quickly, everybody at the table could look up there and reference to understand. So from a very small but very important standpoint, making sure that you guys are using the same vernacular is really important. So that's good stuff. What else out there? So none of you have ever dealt with a change management project. Wow. Yeah, in back. Okay. Standardizing project management. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure none of us have ever dealt with a department that's already said, gone right to solution and saying, we need to buy this. None of us, I'm sure, have ever experienced that. So yeah, going through the project management methodology, and it's hard work, you know, drawing up requirements, figuring out what the needs are, and then going from there makes a lot of sense. And also implementing. Great. What else? Yeah.
From more of a general sense, when we're getting at, just don't be afraid to ask why. Why are you doing that?
Don't be.
Did that happen? You know, a lot of times we'll just take it for granted or say, oh, you know your process, but it's okay to go into something. You may not be desperate on that. And watch the process go through and say, well, why are we doing that?
Yeah, keep asking questions. Right.
You're able to identify the bottlenecks in the process.
Yeah.
Not being afraid to say,
right. It's really important. I've found when you ask those why questions that the group you're speaking to understands that you're not questioning why they did it. You're trying to learn more. You're trying to understand. It's not questioning, oh, why did you do this? You didn't do it right. It's not from a negative standpoint. You're asking why, because help me understand how this works. So that's really important, man. What else out there with change?
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Could you repeat what the people in the audience are saying? Because we can't hear it.
Okay, they were talking about, well, I've been trying to repeat that, but we were talking about change management methods and using project management methodology, asking the why question, always asking why do you do it this way, why do we do this, you know, those types of things. So, Wendy.
So one of the things with the was marketing.
Marketing.
You have to market to your end users, get them to buy into it, inform them along the way what's going on, what stage you're at, sending out either by quarterly emails, just so that they feel they're engaged.
Right. So Wendy talked about marketing, engaging the end users. One thing I found in IT, we tend to be very, at times, black and white. And here's our ROI. This is why we should do it. Here are the facts. Many times, end users and even some leaders are not really concerned with the facts. Change many times is a natural emotional response to resisting change, just physiologically. There's an emotional response that fight or flight. whenever you hear change, you're immediately like, uh-oh, this is going to be bad. And so they're not even thinking of the logic behind it. And I've seen that myself, that sometimes I've relied too much on making the case for it, when really what they need you to do is empathize with them and deal with the emotional side of the equation, which sometimes we overlook. So you've got to make sure you don't overlook that for sure. What else out there? Yeah. Okay. So as mentioned with the ERP process, that it's important, or any really change management process, make sure you include people from all levels of the organization, especially the end users, because the end users usually know what's really happening and how it's really, and they're the ones that are actually going to be using it every day, many times. And that gets back to the project management methodology, because one of the theories of project management is that you include your stakeholders. And obviously the end users are a stakeholder, so it also helps with buy-in. It gets into marketing a little bit. If you have some stakeholders involved, that helps change management, because then there's more of a buy-in, because then they talk to their other peers and they communicate what's going on. So that's a great point. Yeah. So you're saying basically get people involved at the beginning before you've even made a decision, just to have them weigh in on it. And
they made a decision without us figuring out. And we want to try to avoid it. It's a whole different project.
Right, right. I remember I did some strategic planning for a police department, and I did a couple ride-alongs with the officers, and one night we all, 4 of us, got together at a Starbucks before they went off on their patrols and stuff. And they said, no one from IT has ever done this. No one from IT ever asked us what's going on in the car, what am I experiencing with the CAD system, or the radios, or what the in-car video systems, or whatever. No one's ever asked us what we want, and this was coming directly from the officers. So that's really important. Even if they don't maybe get what they finally wanted, at least they had a chance to give their opinion and weigh in on it, like you said. So that's a really good comment. What else? Anything else out there you guys can think of? Okay, great. Oh, one more comment?
Just we're a multi-agency records management support department. And when you're dealing with different departments, you would think that these departments but then obviously the case. And identifying that really that's others have mentioned work on a daily basis, having them part of the board. Part of our project management methodology was at different levels that were responsible for different aspects of it. So there's the chiefs and the deputy chiefs that obviously always want to be included, want to be made aware of what's really happening. And then at the build team, which was comprised of people that really knew a lot about the software, made a lot of it. And then we took people from the build team that you can see they were kind of our power users, bought in of the product. And we took and we transitioned them to what we're now calling a core team. And that core team communicates on an ongoing. Make sure that the statutes are updated and that forms get corrected. And in many instances, a part of the core team they're line-offs. You know, they're not. There's no grass involved. Some agencies it is, and some agencies. And we found that to be very effective because they use the product, okay? And they will come back to you, as you mentioned earlier, saying, well, that's really not do it that way at all. I have no idea why you go with that.
Great. So basically you're saying to delegate responsibilities to different levels of staff in the organization during a change management project, to give them some ownership of it and some accountability to it also. So not instead of like one project team saying we're doing everything and you shall do this and you shall do that, maybe distribute that and to different groups based on their expertise and make them more accountable and get some ownership out of it too. So that's great. You know what was interesting, one last comment is getting back to that strategic plan that I did, is when I met with the command staff or the top level of staff, that was the group that gave me the least amount of input. Because I think they were all afraid to say something that was going to not jive with the chief. And so they were all like, uh-huh. And I was like, okay, so what do you guys think? I was trying to pull information out of them. But you go to the sergeants and to the officers, and they'll give you more input than you ever wanted, pages and pages and pages of input. So it's really important to talk to staff at all levels. So that's great. Thank you very much. Brian, do you take good notes?
I tried.
Oh, great. I don't like this.
I don't know if the whole room can hear me or not, but if anybody has any project ideas they think we ought to share, they can send them to membership@gmisillinois.org, and I'll include them in our presentation.
Yeah, if you've got some case studies, some examples of maybe projects that went well for certain reasons or projects that didn't go well for certain reasons, let us know. Obviously, we will change the names and make sure that, we didn't say, well, Wendy's project with DuPage County that Don told her to do really stunk. We won't do that. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, now, Brian. So next, you got something to say, Brian?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So next up, we actually have Brian and Mark Thorson. They're going to give us. You had a data breach. Now what? They actually did this presentation for. Wasn't it the GFOA conference?
Yes.
Right. And I heard really good stuff even from my own my finance director and assistant finance director about how well received this was. So
It's the highest scored presentation that they've ever had.
highest scored presentation ever. Wow. So without further ado, if Mark, you're ready. Did you have something that?
Yeah, we have a PowerPoint. It should be in the folder on the desk. Yeah, if you could. These are just a quick link over to the documents. That if you want to be able to pull them up during this presentation, look them over. You're more than welcome to. Yeah, that's it. All right.
Your clicker.
So, oh, here we go. Okay. Hi, welcome. Brian and I, Brian, Joey, and Peter from the city of Mattoon, who's in Bloomington currently, is going to help me along with this presentation. We've done this this will be our 4th time doing this presentation, and all 3 times before, it was given to finance people. So as if that was intimidating enough, doing it in front of our colleagues is a whole new set of intimidation. Just some items in honor of the brand new trailer for Star Wars Rogue One. We're doing a very Star Wars themed presentation here, so enjoy. Those of you who are Star Trek fans, I'm sorry. But just some disclaimers before we get started. The work here is that of myself and Brian and Peter personally. It does not necessarily respect the views and opinions of our respective organizations. The incident response method here that's used is built on NIST 800-53, so we're just not making this stuff up. It's actually someone much smarter than us has created this. Also, the information here is guaranteed for 30,000 miles or until you leave this room, whichever comes first. Your mileage may vary. And we're not going to blow your socks off here with any real hacker stuff. We're going to keep this thing at a high level, and we're going to walk through a real-life scenario that has occurred and is very flexible option. So we're going to keep this at a high level. We've been working through this from a finance perspective. We're going to switch it to an IT perspective, which should be a lot of fun, and we're gonna go from there. So our agenda today, and I think I'm just going to talk. Brian, would you like to go over the agenda, or would you like me to?
Well, I think you've done so far such a great job, Mark. I don't know how everybody else can hear me.
You're good. Everyone hear Brian? Yep. All right.
So our agenda today is pretty simple. We're going to go through some introductory remarks. Then we're actually going to go through a real live tabletop exercise of something that's happened in the past. As the names have been changed to protect the innocent before the guilty. And we hope to have time for questions at the end. And this will be the first time that we've ever tried to do a tag team presentation. So hopefully this will work between the 2 different locations. And one final note, I'm actually sitting in Normal, not Bloomington.
There's uptown Normal too, right? Downtown Bloomington, uptown Normal? Okay. Excellent. All right, so moving right along, incident response is about being prepared. I think we all know that. Preparedness is not the end game, and that's what we're really trying to emphasize here, if for nothing else. If you get nothing else out of this, you'll have some documents that you can use, and we're going to walk through a couple of them right now. And the other thing is if for nothing else, you'll see what a incident response tabletop exercise would look like. And I would highly encourage you to take it back to your organization and do something similar at least once a year. So
bringing up a couple examples of incidents and how this idea of preparedness is. Home Depot was attacked, and Target. We're all fairly familiar with those two attacks. Both of them had similar motives. Both of them were very costly, and both of them were very highly publicized. Yet Target just tanked. I mean, their stock price dropped. It was just a PR nightmare. And Home Depot actually got out of this relatively unscathed. And what's really ironic is Home Depot happened after Target, and actually worse. So it left security professionals sitting there going, all right, well, what have we learned from this? And one of the theories behind this is that Home Depot was rehearsed. They were transparent. They came across as if they had done this before. And that made a big deal in terms of perception from a public relations standpoint. Now, as villages and park districts and forest preserves, we don't have stock prices. We just have reputation. So we have to sort of base everything off of what's the public perception of how this is going to happen. So that brings us to a couple quotes. One, you should all be familiar with: failing to plan is planning to fail. We understand that. You have plans in place, protocols, policies, and so on and so forth. But this is the next quote from unlikely sources where we're going to really hit home with this. Everybody is planning in the mouth. So, yeah, you didn't think you were going to get a Mike Tyson quote in a InfoSec speech, but it's the truth. You got to go through this stuff. You have to see how your plan works, and you have to before something bad happens, and you're trying to do it then. So, once again, this was done for finance people, so we had to go through a lot of definitions. I'm sure you're all very familiar with IP address and credentials. This one you may not be as familiar with. Exfiltrate is just the unlawful or non-wanted removal of data out of a system. And the other one I can't stress enough is MSISAC. And I know we've had someone in the audience that had a recent event where they contacted MSISAC. I told Joan I would point her out, but if you want to speak to Joan afterwards about her experience, I encourage it. But if you're not a member of MSISAC, please become one. It's a very, very good organization, and it's free. All right, that leads us to our scenario. So, Coruscant employee. Yep.
Mark,
yes.
you skipped a section.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry, Brian.
So you'll have to go back a slide.
I can do that.
Nope. I get the blank slide. There you go.
He usually tries this thing, so you know.
Okay, so I'm going to just take a quick moment before we dive into the scenario to talk about the resources that we are sharing with everybody today. I emailed it to the people in the room, and it just occurred to me that I probably should have included that Joe and Sanford in that email. I apologize, guys, for being slack and not doing that, but I'm correcting that as I talk. But what we are sharing with everybody, and I think, Mark, you were printing stuff out, a link to share with the people up there.
Yeah, so the piece of paper that you've received has a little link in there, and in there you'll see a few documents. One of them is the incident response protocol. If you want to go ahead and pull that up, and if you want to follow along. We're going to have pieces of it throughout the demonstration. So
even if you're not able to, if you don't have it up in front of you, just pay attention, and it'll be something you can look forward to looking at when you get it in front of you. And Joe and Sanford, you should have it by now. But what's interesting is that this is a complete protocol that you can actually use. I highly recommend that you change the names, because it's currently written out for the city of Coruscant, and it shows Obi-Wan Kenobi as the owner. So There'll be some editing that you'll need to do, but you'll actually be able to use this in your own organization. It has sections including a purpose, defining what the purpose of the response protocol is all about, a scope, when you're supposed to use the protocol, which is something we're going to dive into deeply here in just a few moments, because it actually has within it, as Appendix A, it has a decision matrix to help you decide whether or not you even need to activate the protocol. There's some goals that are listed here, some definitions, some of which we've already discussed. But I will tell you that we have specifically defined 2 acronyms that I'm sure everybody is just love hearing, and that is PII and PHI and PPHI. So those are the personal information and protected health information, personally identifiable information we've all got to look out for. And something that I think is really important in here is the definition of roles. You know, when you have an incident come up, and I know some of us have been involved in the emergency response planning, same concept here, where you want to define roles before you actually have an incident. So you know in advance who's going to be responsible for what. So we get specific in these roles, need to identify the municipal manager or whoever is in charge of the organization or their designee. Somebody in charge of the incident response, the actual director. So I can't see everybody, except for those sitting in the room with me, but how many of you are the director of IT or the CIO for the organization? Great. If you've raised your hand, guess what? You are more than likely the incident response director. In other words, tag, you're it. And, you know, if you're you might also be the lucky stiff who's the assistant IT director, and you might get delegated that task. Not that is true. Then, of course, there's the incident response team, which is going to include your technical support staff. It's really important for you to include a public information officer, even if you don't normally have somebody to do that. Identifying somebody to take care of that responsibility in the middle of an incident will be really important. Depending upon the situation, especially this one that we're going to walk through, you might need somebody from finance, you might need somebody from human resources. Believe it or not, you might actually have to have somebody from law enforcement involved, as well as the city attorney or some other legal contact. The incident response protocol also includes a flow chart. Any programmers in the room, former programmers in the room will love that because flow charts are quite useful in determining who does what when. We'll go through parts of that flow chart during our incident here in just a moment. One of the files that we've seen in the link that we've shared with you is an actual Visio document. That is this flow chart in full that you'll be able to zoom in on and get up and close and personal with. So with that, I think I've gone through everything I'm supposed to. Mark, I'm going to pass it back to you.
All right. I can't stress enough having that Visio file in your incident response plan, some sort of a flow chart, because when the stuff's hitting the fan, it's easier to see a picture and okay, I'm starting here, I got to go there and follow this all than it is to read through a bunch of words. So you tend to get a little bit better response with that. So this begins our scenario and our tabletop exercise. This is a full discussion, so please feel free to jump right in and give ideas or things. We are constantly learning as we go through this presentation. So, Coruscant employees are scheduled to be paid today. Check stubs are received by employees, but Han Solo, our payroll specialist and bounty hunter by night, is or smuggler by night, I should say, receives a call from an employee that says they didn't get paid. Then he gets another call. and another call. So something's going on here. Now we have to figure out exactly what's going on. At this point, finance would be the first people involved. You have your payroll specialist getting all these phone calls. So we would assume that they would call IT and say what's going on. From their perspective, they're probably going to call the bank, and they're going to determine if maybe something was wrong with the file, maybe there's something wrong with the transmission that occurred, something along those lines. We're assuming that this is direct deposit, and we're assuming that we have an ERP system that's out in the cloud.
Mark?
So, yes, Brian?
It just so happens that finance has gotten hold of me, and they've contacted the bank, and the bank indicates the file was processed properly, and there are no issues from the bank's perspective.
All right. So we know that the bank file is good. There's no abnormalities that prevented money to get deposited, which means money did get deposited properly, but where? And that's another question we have to start asking ourselves. So at this point, from an IT perspective, we get a phone call from finance that says, bank got the payroll file processed normally, but we have a bunch of people calling and saying they didn't get paid. So at this point, what are we going to end up doing? I skipped too far ahead. So I mean, we're probably going to want to see, normally there's a file generated that's on our end, or if it's not, it's the ERP. So do we have, yes?
Hey, IT's gone through the payroll files, and they've noticed that the bank information is actually changed for a couple of the problem employees.
So now we have a situation where we don't know what happened exactly, but we know that bank account information has been changed in the payroll system. So, I mean, at this point, what are we looking at possibly? There's about two scenarios here. One is an external attacker comes in, and what would be the other one then? An internal attack. So we don't know exactly who's behind this just yet. We just know something's happened. We know that there's been bank account information that's been changed. And so we have to figure this out at this point. Once again, we're dealing with an external hosted ERP system. So from an IT perspective, an on-staff IT perspective, we're going to probably give them a call, say, we need to find out when these were changed. This brings up a good point when you're purchasing an ERP system. How well are they logging, especially if it's cloud-based? How well are they logging? Is it diagnostic only? Are they going to be able to tell you if someone logged in and changed something, what happened? Is there a proper audit file? Normally, finance has those rules in place, but it's always good to ask and make sure, even if it's on-premise, because you don't want to find out now. Okay. So at this point, we're going to assume that that the ERP system calls back and says that there was a change made, and at that point, the ERP may turn around and just lock us out. They may have sufficient enough evidence to know that something bad has happened, so they may just turn around and lock us down. So we have an incident at this point. And Brian?
Mark, we want you to...
Yes, if you could, please.
Okay, then here we go. If you happen to have this up on your computer already, Appendix A is on page 9, and there are 10 different levels of impact, so to say. But we're only going to look at a few of these just to give you an idea of the sorts of steps that you might want to go through. So impact level number 1 that gets a code of vulnerability 3. Something has occurred that an intruder must apply substantial effort to compromise the asset and to get sensitive data. That's like getting a phishing email somebody's got to actually get the ball rolling, and I think we've gone beyond that. If we look at level 4 there, there might be an intruder conducting reconnaissance against us, against the organization with access data, but there's no definite proof that access has been gained. Category 2 type incident, it can be confirmed that there is an asset that's been compromised that has access to sensitive data, but it requires privilege escalation before anything can actually be accessed or changed. As we look at the definition of page 1, it says that the intruder has exfiltrated sensitive data or is suspected of exfiltrating sensitive data based on volume or etc. So in this particular incident, we have an incident where data has been changed. If data has been changed by somebody, then it's been accessed, obviously, right? And if it's been accessed, then it's been exfiltrated from the organization. So I think you have a breach 1 level 10 incident going on here, Mark.
All right. So with this this Appendix A, and I'll let you know, this was actually provided by the Chief Information Security Officer for FireEye, Richard Baitlick. And I found this, and I thought this is just the cat's meow, because how often do we sit and go, do we start this incident response protocol, or is this not a big enough deal to do that? And what this Appendix A does, this threat matrix, is it walks you through, and you can say, all right, well, did it do this? No, it didn't do that. Did it do this? No, we're beyond that. And you can get to a point where you understand if we have to go through this or not. Impact level 6 or higher on that appendix is usually where people are, but you can decide for your own organization what you feel is appropriate. We've determined that we have an incident now, that we have to enact a plan. So our first step is we have to build a team. Who's going to be our incident response team? So obviously the incident response director pulling all this together will be. But who else should we have on this team? Probably finance director or designee. Legal, absolutely would be somebody that would want on there, but possibly. It all depends on how you feel the severity is. At this point, we have money that has left the organization, so right away we have theft. This is just, if you take computers out of the scenario, someone stole money from your village and is gone out. So there's legal is definitely going to be involved there. Okay, a PIO or a, is that what you're saying? Okay, excellent. So we definitely want to have somebody that can make that's in charge of managing the message going out of that incident response room. Absolutely. Anyone else should get involved in this thing? Police, law enforcement, if you have a forensic tech on staff in your police department, probably want to get them involved too. Otherwise, if you don't have anyone that has forensics ability, MSISAC is a great resource that you might want to be member of, and you'll get that kind of support as well. Yeah. That's a good one, and we didn't have that originally, and it was brought up in one of our sessions. Like I said, we're constantly fixing our own presentation as we go along here, but call your insurance company and find out what they may want somebody at the location to oversee at the very least, if not be a part of your incident response. So your insurance company, I'll find out if you have to open a claim at this point. Anybody else wish to add there?
Really manage
village manager, whoever your village executive is, that role is critical. And it's critical because if that role's not there, all your elected officials are going to be coming to you, asking questions, and keeping you from managing this incident. So that's that person's job, is to be the intermediary, to say, what's going on? Okay, let me go relay that to them and make sure that they're in a good place. So that would be absolutely critical as well. Excellent, yes? That is an excellent point. And once an incident's been started, the three rules of incident response are document, document, and document. If you sneeze near a computer, write it down. It doesn't matter what it is. No detail is too minute, because forensics is going to want all the information that's going on to try and piece together what happened. Yes, sorry, that was documentation, and we also had police and forensics. Call your insurance company. I think I got and legal. All right. Yes.
This is more of a question.
Sure.
Do you or how get your response?
Like first responders?
No, you know, like if you have like a crisis management team, response.
Okay, so an emergency response team or crisis management, possibly?
No, it's usually a interdepartmental.
Okay.
Also, in your it's do you get them involved? And when guys
you know, okay, so the question is about crisis management, like Department of Homeland Security, if you have representatives or personnel that are in that realm that work within your organization, whether to get them involved right away, possibly down the line. You know, does anyone have any ideas or thoughts on that? I guess from my perspective, I would probably think that, yes, Brian.
Can you repeat or give us an idea?
Okay, so if you have a crisis management or someone that is a part of Department of Homeland Security that's within your organization as like a crisis management person or team, when would you get them involved? Would you get them involved right away? Would you wait? Do you want too many people in the room? I guess is what you're sort of where you're asking, if it's so names and things like that, yeah.
That's the sort of thing that needs to be decided by an organization in advance and identified in the incident response protocol, and a good reason to go over it as an organization in some sort of tabletop exercise. Led by yourself, the organization, because those decisions should be made before you have to actually put on the incident response protocol. That's a great question, and it needs to be decided upon early.
Getting garbled there, Brian. Sorry.
Yeah,
I would say Brian's absolutely correct. I've made numerous changes to this incident response plan after the first practice we had in Schaumburg. And there's just so many things you don't think of when you're building these things. And you say, oh, well, that didn't really work as well. So now I redid the flow chart and moved things around. That might be a perfect example of when, bring them in right off the bat. And then if you're going through the exercise and that person's just twiddling their thumbs, or or it becomes too messy, you'll at least know that so you can make alterations to how you're going to do that.
Mark?
Yes.
Since you mentioned the flow chart, if we were to advance the slides, people will see the full thing.
Oh, yep, very good.
I doubt that anybody can read that.
It's a good eye chart.
Yes. They'll be good to know. They'll be glad to know that if you press the space bar or advance the screen again, that they'll get a much smaller version, a much larger version that might be easier to be seen.
So we have an event on the upper left and to the right and down. And we've got the detector reporter, we're assessing it, and we've activated our incident response. So as we move along, we're building up our team, and now we want to probably brief our village executive or whoever our organization executive is. Let them know what's going on. At this point, should we notify anybody? Should we, I mean, we have people right now that have no idea what's going on. They just know that they got their check stub, but there's nothing in the bank. So at this point, should we at least let people know something? And then this is, it's better to be as transparent as possible. I can tell you, diving back just from researching some of these things, the companies that came out and were more transparent about things were the ones that came off looking much better in the end. So at this point, you might want to decide, depending on the size of your organization, how you want to notify them. In the link, you'll see there's sample form letters and emails. If you want to do it by paper, if you want to do it by email. Get those templates approved in advance. Don't wait for an emergency to have to run around and get approvals and then go and send the thing out. You're just delaying, you're using up valuable time at that point. So use those pre-approved templates, fill in the blanks with the information you're allowed to give at that point, and then you can send it out. If it's an email, make sure it doesn't look like a scam. The Office of Personnel Management learned that the hard way. If it looks like it's a scam, people aren't going to necessarily follow it. Use your internal looking document. Make sure there are links to internal only resources if possible. If it becomes a problem and you're looking at it and you're like, oh, it just looks like a hack, then put it on paper and send it out in a memo or something along those lines. But at the very least, just make sure it doesn't look like someone's trying to phish your users. And if you're a high enough profile organization, people will be trying to phish your users. So you got to be cognizant of that as well. We should probably contact the insurance company. Here's one of the other things. People still need to get paid. Their bills don't care that you've been hacked. Their mortgage is going to be due regardless. So here's where the costs start adding up with a breach. Not only have you lost the money, because finance has called the banks. They've tried to stop the payments, and in the case that I'm giving you this scenario, there were about 60 or 70 that were affected. They were only able to stop 3. Once it gets into that SWIFT network and it's in the ether, forget about it. Banks don't be able to pull it back. It'll be weeks and before they can try and readjust what happened. Yes. The assumption here is we've gone through and the attack has occurred because the accounts have been changed per that payroll file, and we've notified the banks. The banks are saying the money's already been transferred. We can't pull it back. We don't know that actually. We don't know if the attack is over or how it happened just yet. We just know things have changed. Yes. Sure. That's a very good point. The forensic side of it is
working under the assumption that the forensic side of it is being handled on the ERP side. And as of this point, they would have locked us out of the ERP because even they don't know what just happened, and they're trying to search log files to get us information. We just haven't gotten that update yet as to what's happening on their end.
Hey, Mark.
Correct. Yeah, well, I mean, if all the accounts are locked up and that system goes offline, whoever's trying to mess with that system is going to be given the glue right away. Yeah.
Mark?
Yes, Brian.
It just so happens that I've gotten some communication from the ERP tech support. They've researched their log files and supplied us with the IP address, the username, which is DFET, D-F-E-T-E, and the time of that the person or the device changed the bank account numbers. It looks like these account changes were made at 2 a.m. last Tuesday.
Okay, so given that information, we know that the attack seems to have been someone got in, compromised credentials, got in, changed account information, and as far as we know, just left at that point. So it's a very good question, and this is sort of the thing where finance people wouldn't have asked us those types of questions, so we were walking through step by step, but that's a very good point. And now we have to look at what will happen moving forward now that we know it's been shut down. We know that there's been evidence of tampering with the accounts. It happened a while back. It happened at 2 a.m. I failed to mention this before, but finance would have had to start conducting internal interviews along with probably legal or anyone or HR, whoever would be overseeing that process, to try and find out what's going on. We know that BOFET here was made the changes, but we don't know if that was that person. It happened at 2 a.m.
Mark?
Probably unlikely that, yeah, Brian.
I just so happened to interview with Mr. Fett. It kind of looks like he may have been exposed to a spear phishing attack.
Okay, so his credentials were taken through a spear phishing attack, something that would have been found out through that interview. Probably asked us to go and check the log files or the emails and see what had happened, and sure enough, it looked like it was the ERP system sending an email asking for password reset, and then, you know, that person did it, and now they have their credentials. So now that we have that information, ERP system is probably going to ask us to have everyone do a wholesale password reset once the system comes back online, assuming they complete their forensic investigations. It is important to note, but I think I'm preaching to the choir at this point, that this is an external attack. This didn't happen inside. If it was a malicious attack on your network, there's going to be more steps involved. Obviously, you're going to have to quarantine that PC if it was malware or something along those lines. I've been told from people who have had these things happen that sucker can be taped off for weeks, months, while forensics goes through and can't touch the machines. Figure out how people are going to get paid. Sometimes they have to work through the banks. Sometimes the banks will just cut checks directly. Other times, with this specific incident, you're going to hopefully have manual checks on hand somewhere. Go back to cutting them manually if need be. You're probably going to want to brief the city executive at this point. Yep, back one. So you're probably going to want to brief the city executive as to what's happened. Make sure that the elected officials are understanding. The PIO or whoever's in charge of messaging is making sure that the messages are consistent through press releases or any other means. Do we need to have contractor assistance? We probably need to have law enforcement involved at the very, if we haven't already. They would want to get them involved. Yes.
I hate to interrupt, but there's something you need to know. The ERP tech support just contacted me, and it appears as if the compromised credentials were found in log files accessing W-2 information at approximately the same time period as the payroll files. It does not appear as if anything was modified, only viewed.
All right, so when you're going, and once again, I encourage you to go through a similar exercise with your organization, but it's good to throw in little gotchas here and there, if you can, with the scenarios. This is one of those. We have W-2 information that was accessed. Doesn't look like anything was changed, but does that really matter? It was viewed. It was viewed. It takes 2 seconds to do a screen print. So now it's been essentially exfiltrated. We have to assume that. So now what do we have to do? The Illinois criminal statutes says that if it's a name, address, phone number, or some other piece of information in conjunction with a social security number or a driver's license number, it needs to be viewed as personally identifiable information. And if you don't have a personally identifiable information breach notification plan, you need to get one, because that's actually Illinois state law for that requires that. So in the documentation you've been given, there's a HIPAA breach notification. You can use that, and it's not too far of a stretch to make that into a PII one. Get rid of Department of Health and Human Services, because they don't care if it's PII. They only care if it's, you know, protected health information. And there's some other things that, basically, I've given you the more involved notification plan. You can back that off to a less involved PII plan, just using that same framework. So at this point, we're going to want to walk through that notification process. That's an official one, so there really isn't any decisions to be made. You follow the bouncing ball and whatever plan you've got for that notification. They'll brief the village executive and let them know that we've had a PII breach. We have to handle that. Also, there's somebody else, yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, that's part of these things. Now, with this incident response plan, this is not the end-all, be-all, follow the bouncing ball. This is more of a checklist to say, I've gotten to this point. By the way, did you let the village manager know? Because you're tunnel vision at that point. You're trying to get through whatever it is you're getting through. You may not think of some of these things. So the question is when do we notify the public, even though this was an internal incident? We need the word's going to get out that there was a breach. So if you have a PIO or someone designated as a PIO, I would get their consultation on it and find out what they think needs to be done at all of those decision points for notification. They may say right up, we're going to put something out, depending on the severity, through like a calling bridge or something along those lines to let people know something's going on. It's a balancing act that they're going to have to figure out, because not enough information, target. Too much information, well, then you've got other legal issues you'll have to step through and things like that. So there's definitely a line that needs to be walked. And honestly, if you don't have somebody in staff that is capable of that or has that proficiency, you might want to have, before this hits the fan, contract with a company that deals in crisis management and PR and can help walk through those things. Get those contacts established before something bad happens, and that way you're just walking through and activating it as needed. Same thing with the activate the PII notification. You're going to want to follow the rules in that. There will be notification steps in that most likely if you use that template. If you use your own, you'll have your own setup for that. And with that, we're going to go through to the next step in the process, which at this point the ERP system will assume has concluded their forensics. They've realized that the attack was limited to the changes made in the system and the W2 accessed, and there doesn't seem to be any other abnormal activity that went on. So ERP will be booted back up. Everyone's going to have to reset their passwords, go through. Maybe at this point you start looking at two-factor authentication if you didn't have that already. But we're going to walk into probably the most important part of this entire exercise, which it would be the follow-up, the debrief. You want to do this preferably right after you practice. Sometimes it's better to give everybody a day to think through it and come back the next day and give it. But at the very least, don't forget to follow up. That's where I made a whole bunch of changes. I had a whole bunch of things that I thought would work, and then when I practiced them with the team, it didn't work very well. I had to move things around and figure out where decision points needed to change. So make sure that you decide what went well, what needs improvement, and make sure you're documenting all those changes that you want to make so that you can go right back. If you have to go back at a later time to make changes, you remember what you did. And then we close the incident. Obviously, once again, this was a very high-level, controlled attack, and things don't really work this way very nicely. But at the very least, the practice and the process gets you walking through each step and allows you to see where things may not work for your organization. You might have to tweak them. Any questions or
Mark?
Anyone? Yes.
During this presentation, it was brought up to me that the town of Normal actually uses, I hope it's okay I say that, uses a solution from an organization called Beoci. It's spelled B-E-O-C-I. And they have web-based emergency management software that can help an organization walk through an incident as well, which is an interesting solution, just to see what else is out there. And there might be other people in the room that have similar solutions in place. But for those who don't, it's nice to have something handy free. All you got to do is get rid of Ben Kenobi's name.
Yeah, just do a find and replace, and you'll be set. And like I said, there's form letters in there. There's sample email templates. There's a HIPAA notification, the incident response protocol. If you get nothing else out of this, at least you have some documentation. You can do a find and replace and put it in place until you can get something that works. Yes? Mm-hmm. Okay, so Appendix A is attached to that incident response protocol, so it's part of that. So there's also Appendix B, which I think is a sample log for just, you want to start jotting notes down as soon as the incident starts. You can, it's got a little outlined note section or log section as well. So you'll have that, and Appendix A is in there as well. Oh, okay. I don't have it open right now, so if you don't see it, come see me, and we'll figure it out. Any other questions? Or
what was the question, Mark?
All right. Well, once again, on behalf of Wendy, Wendy was not seeing the Appendix A on the incident response protocol.
Yeah, it's page 9. If you look at the page number, top right of each page. It's page 9.
All right. Well, on behalf of Brian and myself, thank you for listening, and I hope you got something out of this. So, thanks.
All right, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break and be back here by 11:15. But before we do, a quick drawing. Glenn, if you can give me a number. 38. It's yours. All right, John. John Peebles. All right, I'll be back in 10 minutes.
So I'm probably going to go hang in the lunchroom. So I can't remember what time I told them.
Hopefully around 12,
Yeah.
12:15.
Well, I think I told them 11:45.
Oh, okay.
But I don't even remember, so I'm going to go hang out there. So if you need anything, call me or text
Might
me.
you had anything to mention to that?
No, I don't think so. The survey is a big deal. Obviously, we care.
Brandon, what's your... All right, if I can get everybody to take a seat, we're going to get started again. Hello, everybody, take a seat. Ed, I see you out there. All right, well, welcome back. We saved the best for last. We have our platinum corporate member, Paul Walto here. Brandon Ryan, their regional sales manager for the area, and Chris Goodman, systems engineer, who I asked for a quick bio, and he described himself as father of two and ninja security engineer. So I'm looking forward to this. So please come on up.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for everything. I don't like PowerPoints. So raise your hands if you like PowerPoints. Yeah, but I don't like them either. I'm going to try. I know we have remote people with us too. I like to be interactive and show fun stuff. How many people want to see what the bad guys do when they infect your machine? Let's see the back end of that, huh? Okay. So that's my first slide, if you will. If you can move to the next slide, it says malware demo. Or is there this? Oh, look at this! I got a whoozy whatsy. All right, and then in the background, there's probably my slide or my demo.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. That's not it. I can do it for you want.
We're talking about the video.
Yeah.
Oh, the video.
The video, please. I'm sorry. My 6-week-old is driving me nutty right now, so I like 4 hours sleep. Okay, that's.
We're getting there.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
So yeah, that's it. So to set this up, how many people have Outlook? Raise your hand. Everyone, right? Everyone. And so what I'm going to show you is an email that someone's going to send to you, and it's totally legit, and they're going to own your machine. So let's go ahead and first run it. This is going to show you first. I did this in April. We put McAfee on it, so some relatively good antivirus. Take that with a grain of salt. And then after that, we stuck Emmet on it. It's a Microsoft free thing to stop exploits. And then lastly, there's another product on there too to try to stop these things. So this is just proving to everybody that it's up to date and that it's running. Next one is Emmet, and you'll see this. Emmet's something that's free for you guys, and if you're going to ask what exploit I used, it's something that I wrote, so you can't have it. So, okay, and here's Emmet. Again, proving to everyone it's on, it's working, using all standard protocols, how it is. The last one is a Palo Alto product called Traps, and it's disabled, it's turned off. All right, so if you stop for a minute here. Okay, so what you're going to see next is just a friendly email. How many of us will get an email from somebody today saying, hey, it was great seeing you at GMIS? Raise your hand. Yeah. And so what bad guys do is they know that these things occur. And so no longer is it the case, it's rare that you're going to get a email saying, I'm this prince from Nigeria and I need help. So now they're getting crafty. So let's go ahead and let's see that email. So let's just run it a little bit. So it's loading the Outlook. We're going to go check my email. Here's Ignite is a Palo Alto event, but this one is called Bad Windmail. Right here. We're just going to highlight it. So we're going to say, I don't even like this. This is weird. I don't know who sent me this. I'm not even going to look at it. I'm just going to pause it here for me, please. So that looked weird to me, right? As a good security professional, we're all beat it into our heads. Hey, I don't want a phishing email. This looks goofy. I'm just going to send this to my InfoSec team or some sharpshooter, right, that knows about this. And so I'm going to say, I'm not going to open it. I'm just going to forward it on. So let's go ahead. I'm going to forward it on. And now you're going to see what the bad guy sees in the next couple seconds here. So Okay, so this is called Kali Linux. This is something that's freely available to everybody. It's usually used for offensive security, where people try to pen test your machine. But the curious thing about this exploit, this email that I sent everyone, is that it runs in the window pane, the preview pane. And so what you're seeing now is the commands that the bad guy has done that sent you this email. And what he's going to do next is rightfully scary. So let's see what he does. You know what? I need to check my account balance in my Bank of America, which I don't use. Bank of America. I totally forgot that. And I am looking for a house, so I have to check my account balance. So I'm just going to log into my account. You guys have probably seen this movie and know what's going to happen. I'm just going to go in there. Say log in. Didn't open the email, by the way. So here's the bad guy, and now we're going to see what the bad guy sees. So pause for me for a second here. Is there cool. Well, this is really hard to see. So this is the guy's username, and then not my password is his password. So what just happened? Didn't open the email, but got a keylogger on his machine, and now understands all his username and passwords. He's owned. And the thing that we're going to talk about today is exactly what Sam said about IR, right? We're going to try to prevent that IR incident by securing your network, and so you never have to deal with this. So let's go ahead and finish this up, this last video here. Yeah? Yep. Yep. So with McAfee, with Emmett, with everything on top of it, and you're still owned. That's correct. Inbox. Isn't that beautiful? That's a good one.
It's not that it's in the inbox, it's that it's previewed in the preview thing.
That's correct. You had to hit in preview to actually run the code behind it. Yeah, so that's an excellent point. So if you don't have preview available within Outlook and you double click it, you're still owned. Yeah, so you can go into com objects and I like where you're going with this and being a strong security-minded person, but how many institutions do that today? Raise your hands. How many people modify Outlook settings today? Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're going to go through, is we're going to lower the attack surface for the bad guys. Okay. Well, that's all right. He's going to check his Outlook right now. So let's go ahead and let's close this and go into the slides now. So we're going to talk about ransomware because that's on most people's minds, but the very beginning. But this is all about how to protect your network. So how did ransomware come about? This is important because it's all about Bitcoin. So what happened in the very beginning is that ransomware started off in like late 90s, early 90s with AIDS. But the thing was that they had to somehow trick you into giving you money. Usually it's the dial this 1-800 number that wasn't really 1-800 and charge you, $50 for it. But, the Fed's got a hold of that and they can lock that down really quickly. Well, with the advent of Bitcoin and all other cryptocurrencies, it's very hard for the security guys, Fed, CIA, National Security, all the people that we regularly call, they don't know who that is. So it's anonymous, right? So Bitcoin is a good product. It has its uses, but it also has its negative uses too. So with the advent of Bitcoin, ransomware exploded. And so here we go with all the different types of Bitcoin now, ransomware. We have ones for Mac, we have ones for Android, Windows being the biggest target of all. So let's go to the next slide here. Am I gonna put that on? How many of us have seen one of these? These are fun, right? Hey, we got our. I'll raise our hands. Right? We all have seen this. This this is our unfortunate way of dealing with things today. Is we get some type of drive-by, some email, some malicious link, someone that wasn't really thinking, and it's really hard for just normal people that aren't security conscious to know about these things, and boom, their machine's owned, and then it goes to your file shares, and then your whole system is owned, and then you got to call Sam because you got an IR event. So how do you prevent it? So with ransomware today, it's very, very prevalent. It's a big business model. So the thing is no longer is it just young Timmy that's in the basement that's sending this out. These are like nation states, Russia, China, that have business models that are wrapped around this that say, hey, we want to take money from you, or we want to steal your intellectual property. So curious, a lot of people think, oh, credit card number, that's what people are after today. Everyone remembers Target, right? Everyone talks about Target. So just a little bit of history is that credit card numbers were the thing, but now 24 hours is the shelf life, and they're worth 99 cents per number. That's nothing, right? What's really important, and this is what's really key for everyone here, is all the user data. That identity theft is huge. So one person's social with mother's maiden name, with house address, they can make mortgage loans, they can do IRS tax fraud, they can do Medicare and Medicaid fraud, and typically one person with all that kind of, they call it a package, is worth $1,200 on the internet today. So that's where the threats are going. That's why ransomware exists, is that they want to pack everything up. Either you're not going to pay it, so they're going to steal your ID, or they make a couple thousand off of your ID with ransomware. So how does it get in? So you saw a quick demo. Mostly we see it by email. And if there's some type of malicious attachment, you'll see something that comes in saying, hey, check out this cool PDF of your new quote that you got today, and boom, you're done. And the thing is that when you see these PDFs, you won't know that it's going on until it's too late. So let's run through some of the scenarios here. So step one, you get to a website or you get an email. Step two, this email redirects in the background to a command and control server. Step three, this command and control server delivers an exploit kit designed specifically for you. So they've done reconnaissance, they know that you run Outlook, or they know that you have some type of system that's exploitable, and then Bob's your uncle. It's over, as what we saw. And so these are the steps that are what happens. What about the Word documents? So this too is a great way for people to infiltrate your system. So having an exposed Word is something of an issue. So what I suggest is turn off macros. Just right there will help you in protecting your network. Second thing, what are the attack vectors? What are the things that guys do that you can try to protect and be ahead of the bad guys? So one, it's the network, right? So infection vectors like the web and the email, you have to have something in place that checks for command and control, unknown traffic, and identify applications that are safe versus applications that are not safe. Next, SaaS-based apps. How many of us today use Dropbox or something of that sort? Box, Salesforce, show of hands. Everyone, right? So that's the next attack vector. So that's where a lot of bad guys sign up for 1,000 different Gmail accounts, and then they try to friend you or follow you, and then they send you something. And that's how you get owned. So you have to protect yourself from the SaaS. So how do you do that? That's another vector. Again, you need something in place to look for unknown traffic. Only sanctioned apps, only sanctioned places that can be gone into for SaaS-based applications. So if you allow Box or Dropbox or whatever your method of sharing files is today, allow that, but then encourage inspection of that traffic all the way through. Lastly, you need something on the endpoint. So we noticed that Mac was up to date when I did the demo, right, April 1st. but you need something more than just standard AV. Standard AV today, in my mind, is dead. It doesn't look for the exploits that are coming out, because what happens is that you have things that are not signature based that we're all used to. So you need to have something on your desktop that helps you in identifying all those things. So 3 key factors that you need to keep in mind. 1, you need to reduce the attack surface. Prevent the known stuff that's coming in, so prevent people from going to bad websites off the bat, right? Prevent malvertising. This is things that are on Facebook today. This is something you can Google later. They were, unbeknownst to them, sending out advertisements that when people would click on them, they also had bad malicious code in them that infected people. So how do you protect against that? Block advertisements. Lastly, how do you identify and prevent unknown threats? That's another key area. So you create a whitelist policy within your organization saying you're only allowed to go to these places. It's painful. I know it is. I've done it. But this way you can then understand what's going on. And then when you do have a guest network, you have a separate guest network. Comcast or AT&T, something that's not on-prem, that's not physically connected, that you can separate the two. So God forbid, somebody brings in some type of infected laptop, it's not going to talk to your normal network. Again, this is infrastructure changes that it's a little bit painful, but this is how you protect it the best way. So first, reduce the attack surface. So what we're going to do is talk about first gaining that full visibility of all apps, all applications, all ports, all protocols with known and unknown traffic. 2, enforce specific applications and user-based controls on your desktops. You can only have Microsoft Office with Outlook and Word if that's all they need for their business. You have to ensure that you lock down their applications. Do not give them admin privileges. I cannot stress that enough. Take that away from them so they can't install anything. Stop dangerous file types. So how many of us allow anyone to just get EXEs through email, right? What about, that's a typical, well, of course I don't. What about JS? So JavaScript? That's something to think of. What about encrypted zip? So that's something else to think of. What about plain docs? Something else to think of. That's hard, right? Because you want to share these files. You have to do business. So how do you handle that? You need to inspect and protect your network and have something in front of it, like a firewall, to stop all that malicious activity from hitting that desktop. So along with the same piece, right? Known stuff. So you have to stop the known exploit kits, the known malicious command and control, the known URLs that are dynamically generated by the bad guys, and stop them at the door. You have to scan on your desktops and also on your network for known malware and stop it. And then lastly, block the known malware on your endpoints. Those are all key factors that we need to do today to ensure a clean, safe network. So what about unknown? How do you do that? So one of the key things about that is that you have to start analyzing the unknown URL dynamically generated threats. So what does this mean, right? Dynamically generated. So bad guys, they can spin up their servers in Amazon, DigitalOcean, Azure, all these places in about 5 minutes and break them down in 5 minutes. And they create these domains. So what happens is that you have to know about that. And so you need something in place to stop the dynamically generated domains from entering into your infrastructure. Lastly, you need to update the protections that you have that are across your organization and prevent the unknowns that are coming in. So today, if you are just having all inspection traffic going outbound, that's bad news. You need to lock that down and to only allow people go to certain sites that for business reasons. Next, you need to know exactly what the business reasons are. Add context to that ID. What applications they're doing, where they're going, who's going, and for how long. For instance, is there any reason why there should be a staff personnel that uses remote desktop at 2 a.m. going into a financial server? Is there any, why is that, right? There should be no reason that someone should be doing that. So my suggestion is to disable all remote access from, I don't know, midnight or 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. for staff. I get it, IT guys need to be in 24/7, but staff doesn't. Staff doesn't even really have access to remote desktop unless you have like Citrix or some kind of shared hosted model. But that being the case, you need to turn that off. And that's the blocking the unknown and known from your desktop. All right, so requirements. This is the things that you need to look for when you're thinking about stopping this attack life cycle. So the other term is kill chain, but I'm not supposed to use it, but that's what everybody knows it by. One is you have to be in the right position. So you have to be there and have the security mindset. Like you, sir, in the jacket, I like that about Microsoft Outlook and blocking the preview plane executables. That's a fantastic mindset that has to be permeated throughout your whole organization, through our whole organization, right? So on top of that, how many of us have physical machines and virtual machines, right? That's the way of the futures. Pretty much, I'm going to say 85% virtual, and then you got some legacy that's sitting there. How do you know when they talk to each other, right? How do you know when the server went out for an update and now it's talking to another server? You need something in between. You need something not just for north-south traffic, but something east-west to inspect and to ensure that you're looking for that traffic. Best-of-breed security. That's what you need to keep in mind for the types of technologies that you're looking at. Multiple detection techniques. So when we're talking about this, can a product say allow you to not go to a URL, but then also stop a file that's traversing your network? That's malicious, right? So there's multiple different techniques that it needs to know how to do to stop. Lastly, you need to have a team behind you, whomever you choose, that you can hit the panic button and say, I need help, I'm getting infiltrated. This doesn't look weird, this looks weird to me, help me. You need to ensure that they have a global team that's there for you. Lastly, control everything. Now, you guys hold the keys to the kingdom. You have user and constituents data. This is very valuable stuff. So this is things that you need to do to protect your constituents by. So that's basically it, but I have some bonus things that you can write down to take away to do yourself today. All right. How many of us heard of Krebs on security? All right, 3. Next time, I want everybody. He's fantastic, right? He's a little bit, I don't know, special, but his way of presenting information is very, very good. Next one, SANS Internet Storm Center. This is key. So this comes out every day. This is maybe 3 to 5 minutes podcast. Listen to it every day. What this is the latest and greatest things that are happening exploit-wise that are affecting you and your specific items today, right? So like for instance, today, his name is Johannes Ulrich, and there's an interesting exploit with the current TCP IP stack in Linux machines that can be owned. And so if you don't patch your specific Red Hat boxes, you're going to have a bad time. So that's some of the free things he gives, just talking about. It's 5 minutes of your day. Lastly, there's another awesome site, haveibeenpwned.com. So what this is it's a site that you can put your username, your IP address, or I think your like Facebook something, and it'll search the web for all the hacked databases. We all hear about them, right? Oh, this site's been hacked, that site's been hacked. Go through all these databases and let you know if you've been hacked, and say, hey, you might want to change your password. So that this site does it all for you because no one's going to tell you you're hacked until it's too late. So the other big one, and if you don't remember anything, please remember this, put 2-factor on anything you can. So two-factor is huge. So how many of us use Gmail? Right? Wow, it's like everybody. How many of us do two-factor on Gmail? All right, 4. Okay, so why is that important? So two-factor is what happens when somehow I decide to hack, Brandon's Gmail account, and I get in. And I guess his password because he used password for the password. So now I'm in, and so now I can go through all his emails and look for all the websites he goes to, let's say Amazon, and change his Amazon login, right? Because I'm going to hit the reset password, and where does the reset password go? To your email account, right? So now I own his Amazon account, and I'm going to have that 65-inch Samsung OLED screen that I really want. And that's just one example. So that's why if they owned your password, they would be then factored in with some type of physical device, like usually the Gmail authenticator thing. Just takes a minute to set up, and it really protects you. So the last one that I forgot to put in here is there's a product called FishMe. It's not free, but I don't work for FishMe, but our company does it to us all the time. It's like every week. They send you like, hey, you've entered a sweepstakes and you won. It's like, oh, really? Okay. So I recommend FishMe to look into that for your organization. If you're savvy, there's something called Go Fish, GOPHISH. It's not the band. And so that's a free way of sending malicious stuff to your constituents or your employees that way, and gives you a nice little graph of who clicked on what, and you can redirect them to a training page. So that's it. I think I'm 10 minutes early, so what do you have for me? Any questions? Yes, sir. Oh, boy. So what, like, am I a Mac guy? Am I a antivirus? Yeah. That's my viewpoint. So I work for Palo Alto. So Palo Alto gives me free AV. So we use a product called Traps that we have for Mac and Windows, and it's not signature based. It's behavior based. So that's what we use. And my wife is a great Facebook fan, and that thing lights up like a Christmas tree. Because that's how I know about all the malvertising that's going on Facebook. So that's what I use. So I'm a big Mac guy, big Unix guy, but my wife is a Windows 10, Dell something or other. Yes, sir. Absolutely. So for PCI compliance, I totally get it. Yeah, so you can run McAfee alongside Traps if you want. And alongside Emmet if you want to. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you for your time, guys.
All right, for those who are remote, again, Traps is the name of the product that you're probably going to want to go check out. All right, this is about time for us to take lunch. I'm not sure if lunch is here. But before we do, Mike and Wally from Tegile actually have some gift cards that they'd like to raffle off. So Glenn's going to help. Three, right? Three. 4 is the first number. So number 4 here. Come on up. Number 46. That could be remote. Hold on. No? Pick another number. 12? 12 here? Just making sure. No 12? All right, another 35. Wow. Where is everybody? All right, Glenn, I guess. Oh, no, wait. That's, wait, no, Craig already won one. Only one win per day. 22. Oh, 42, sorry. Now somebody's going to be really disappointed. Oh, that's Sanford. Sanford? All right. Sanford, are you here?
Sanford was attending in Champaign.
Is he, Joe, is he there?
No, he left.
Ah, well, you got to be present to win. I'm sorry, Sanford. Pick another. 3? Number 3? Wow. Oh, okay, we finally have a winner. Who thought it'd be hard to give a
Chris?
Yeah.
Chris?
Yes.
I want to make sure Mike Bensel knows to get a hold of me. It's Mike Bensel from Tampa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to talk to him at some point. Not today, but I just want to make sure he knows.
All right. I heard you loud. Mike got the message. All right, and the last number. 39. 39? All right, next.
41.
41. Wow. I'm looking at him as we go through.
37.
37. All right, we finally have a winner. All right, let me, can I just get a quick show of hands of anybody that's going to the GMIS International Conference? Wow. I guess you're all like me and don't get travel expenses outside of state. All right, well, hopefully lunch is there, so we're going to break for lunch. And after lunch, we have our GMIS Illinois board meeting. Of course, everyone is welcome to come, but it's just, we go over just local business, what the board's up to, and so it's always nice to have people sit in and participate and give us their thoughts, but if not, eat lunch, and thank you for coming today. Oh, and please, 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 before you go, turn in the surveys. We really need your input on making these meetings more important to you and more useful for you. So thank you.
We'll go back there.